Hello everyone and welcome to Microsoft 365 Collaboration Conference. My name is Tony and I'm here with Eva. Today we are going to present you the 50 best practices for securing Microsoft 365. I'm Tony, I'm come from Syskit, I'm the CEO and co-founder, and I'm here with Eva. She's our head of engineering, managing and development of all our products for Microsoft 365 customers. Syskit is an independent software vendor. We create software that helps you manage either your Microsoft 365 infrastructure, securing all your teams, groups, and SharePoint sites. And we also produce tools for SharePoint on-prem and various other Microsoft Windows operating systems, software, and stuff like that. Our customers come from all over the globe, and some of the major companies have chosen us to help them manage and govern their infrastructure. Our key product that we want to talk to you about a little bit today is called Syskit Point. It helps you govern your Office 365 estate, perform audit tasks, create reports, do a number of different tasks regarding to governance automation, to access management, and everything related to making your SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, and groups more secure and better governed in general. Eva is going to perform a little bit of demo at the very end of this presentation. So we are going to tie all the knowledge that we present today regarding Office 365 security into a small demo that can help you better understand how you can be better at governing and securing your estate. So let's talk about current situation at the market. If you have been following Microsoft growth, especially of Microsoft Teams, you probably noticed that during the global pandemic, a number of customers have chosen to go into remote work to allow their people to work from home. So they spun all these things, various other systems, but also Microsoft systems like Microsoft Teams. And Microsoft has reported a tremendous growth of daily active users over the course of last year, where a number of companies enabled their employees to work from home or to collaborate with their peers using Microsoft Teams. So the growth has been in many, many millions over the course of last year, and many companies chose to work with Microsoft Teams and Microsoft 365 in general. Microsoft also did a study to understand what customers are planning to do in 2021, and they identified that a number of customers are looking to increase their budgets for security to make sure that all the systems that they have deployed into cloud are secure and that the data stored there is stored properly and in a secure way. So a number of respondents to their survey indicated that security is one of their key focuses in the 2021, just to make sure everything we created this year is going to stay secure for the next years to come. So the focus of this presentation is giving you a short overview of what is actual security within Microsoft 365. What are some of the key components you need to take care of? What are some of the recommendations and best practices to configure these components? And what is some of the underlying stuff you need to pay attention to just to make sure you are on the right track? There are, of course, different aspects of security, and there are many different components in Microsoft 365, and some of these are outlined for you on the screen. So it could be Azure AD security, it could be Microsoft Teams security, SharePoint security, or security of many other different components you might be using in your system. So in the presentation, we are going to cover bits from all these systems, but it's up to you to look into more details on the website and to understand what is really the challenge for people managing security overall in Microsoft 365. We are going to end the presentation with some of our own best practices. So we are going to provide you with some more insights about that. And then we are going to show you how Syskit Point can help you in managing security for your collaboration workloads. So let's start. Our first topic of the day is, of course, Azure AD security. And you're going to notice that in the number of cases, we are going to focus exclusively on Azure AD because Azure AD is the backbone of your Microsoft 365 system. And everything you do regarding security and everything you do regarding configuration of your system is tied to Azure AD. One of the key things you can do, and one of the first things you should definitely do, and I hope all of you already did that, is to enable multi-factor authentication for every single user in your tenant. So this is the best thing you can do, and it's very, very important that every single user connecting to your tenant has MFA enabled and that you enforce it on a tenant-wide level. So Microsoft is providing you with a lot of these security defaults, a lot of these policies that help you enforce things like multi-factor authentication, and you really need to make sure that everybody is using multi-factor authentication. There are many flavors of multi-factor, and there are many ways you can do multi-factor. People can choose to do text messages through their phones or use Microsoft built apps to authenticate. So it's up to you. Although the recommendation in recent months is that you should definitely use Microsoft Authenticator app on your smartphone to authenticate every single user to come into the system. With that said, you should also bear in mind that there have been some outages of multi-factor authentication. There are some issues, and you need to make sure that you have some sort of an emergency access accounts. Say this could be an administrative account that can go into the system even when multi-factor authentication services are not working. So you can make sure that you can log in and work while the system might be down. So there are many different best practices, and I urge you to do a little bit of research, but you could have a super admin accounts that do not require the multi-factor authentication, but you need to make sure that the password is stored in a safe way, or you need to make sure that multiple people have access to a multi-factor device required by a global admin in case the primary user is not available. You can also look into using some sort of a third-party MFA in case of the primary MFA not working. So you should definitely do a lot of practice drills and make sure that you actually can go into the account in an event of multi-factor authentication not working, or in an event of that your admin is not allowed or not able to log in at a particular time. So protecting your global admin accounts is very important. And when you set up everything, this is the second task you need to do. So you need to make sure that your global admin account is securely protected, that you know how to, say, break into the system if the primary global admin is not available. There are a lot of options for you. You can use a privileged work access station for a global admin and limit the access for global admin for just this workstation. And you can also do enable the feature called privileged identity management to prevent people from logging in from a different workstations or different locations or different things. But you need to have a plan. What happens when the primary user, who is a global admin, cannot log in? So some sort of a backup procedure should be available. But we said that global admins are very important, and you must have one, but you should limit the use of global admin role within Azure AD. That's why Microsoft has recently introduced a number of different admin roles. I have a picture, have a screenshot of some of the new ones, where you can delegate some sort of just a section of permissions to other users, and you don't need to give them the global admin access account. So it's very important that you keep and limit the number of people that have global access account, global administrator account, sorry, and just give it to just a hand-picked number of people that actually need to perform these tasks. And even for them, global admin should probably be the secondary account, meaning that they should log in with their regular user account and only use the global admin account if there is something very important that they need to administer within the system. Microsoft is also doing a lot of things to help you delegate administration to other users. So recently a new feature has been introduced called administrative units, where you can put a number of users and groups within this Azure AD administrative unit, and then you can assign somebody else to be the administrator of this unit. So for example, in a say a retail environment where you have a lot of stores, you can put all the employees that work in a particular store into administrative unit and assign the store manager to be their administrator, allowing him or her to do password resets or change the phone numbers or some other stuff. And you don't need to put this pressure on IT or put this pressure on a global admin to make these changes. So with administrative units, you can easily delegate security to be performed on a much smaller scale. Microsoft is also introducing a new application called My Stuff, and this is particular, it's designed exactly for a retail environment, say, where you would give access to store manager, and she can then use their phone with the My Staff application, and she can go to this application and just simply reset the password for a person that forgot it, or she could also change the phone numbers and stuff like that, update, disable, enable MFA. It's a very easy to use interface. You don't need to be a power user, so any store manager can do it. There are also applications within other industries as well, but I would say this is a very great example where you would do a delegation of security to somebody else. Of course, when we set up everything, it's recommended that we sometimes do access reviews. So we need to refresh the situation within our security environment to make sure we are having proper people assigned to proper roles. So scheduling access reviews is a good approach where you verify that some people are really still required to be part of some security team. So it's very important to do it. And it's very important to do these things for highly privileged roles, especially global administrators. There are other security options available for you within Office 365. This segment is very important to protect you from any kind of intrusions like malware and phishing and spam, and especially Microsoft Defender helps you protect your emails, which are more often than not source of many intrusions coming from outside of the company. So people could get a virus as an attachment, or malware, or phishing attacks, which are very common and happen often in the corporate environment. So Microsoft has this plan with Microsoft Defender to purge all these things from your email, but also from SharePoint, OneDrive, and other storages of files. The capability is built on AI, so they're tracking all these threats, and they're identifying attackers attacking multiple Office 365 customers, and they're trying to help you stay proactive and remove these threats before they even happen to your users. There's also one cool part of this system called Attack Simulator, where you can create a false phishing attack just to make sure and identify potential areas or potential departments in your organization that require more education about phishing, and make sure that nobody actually clicks on a phishing link and provide their credentials or something of business importance to the attacker. When we talk about security and threats that are pretty much living in your files and emails, there is a good feature for administrators called Security Dashboard, where your administrators can go into Security Dashboard and have an overview of what has happened within your tenant. So you will see, for example, number of messages that were detected as phishing attacks. It's going to show you how many malware files were blocked and stuff like that. So administrators can learn from this system to be better and more proactive, and to understand what is actually happening in the environment. And if you're managing a large tenant, of course, you cannot stay on top of every single thing. So you really need to have an aggregated view of what is actually happening and what's inside the system. One next step for everybody to make sure that tenant is protected would be Azure AD conditional access. So conditional access is building on top various different signals. So it could understand where is your what is your location, what is the pattern of you logging in and stuff like that. And then you can create rules and say, if you are a company based in the United States and you have a global admin logging in from some other country, and this is not your regular business practice, then you can create a rule and say, well, this is not allowed, so you just block the access of that user because it might be a malicious user trying to enter your system. And system can create all these rules, so you can think of it as if-then statements, but a little bit more complex than that, and it includes machine learning, and it also helps you stay proactive and detect these threats in advance. So you should definitely, once you set up everything, you should definitely look into conditional access just to make sure you have secured every single access that might be where people could be coming into your system. So as I said, there are many different signals. It could be IP location, it could be device, it could be application, and then the system can make all these decisions. It could either say block the user that's coming from a phishing IP address, or you can grant but also require something else. So if you're logging in with a non-compliant device, the conditional access system could say, well, we really need you to have a compliant device. There are other common access policies like requiring multi-factor authentication, requiring some trusted location, blocking and allowing stuff. So you should definitely look into how conditional access can help you stay more secure. Azure also has this thing where does a little bit of machine learning and trying to understand what is happening. So it could, if you enable Azure AD identity protection, which is like one step above conditional access, I would say, it could use machine learning and knowledge that it already has and prevent some potential attacks. So it could detect, for example, if your credentials were leaked somewhere on the internet, it could detect if somebody is trying to do a password spray attack, trying to guess your password. It could detect if the IP address that's being used to connect has already been connected to malware attacks and stuff like that. So it helps you be more proactive and understand what is actually happening with your tenant. One additional layer of protection, of course, of your devices and your, say, mobile phones especially, is Microsoft Intune. Microsoft Intune helps us manage remote devices and making sure they're compliant with policies. This is especially important if your organization allows people to bring their own devices. With this, you can control what kind of applications they have, you can deploy applications remotely, and you can make sure that these mobile and other devices are secure and that they are configured to your standard of security, whatever you are requiring within the company. There are many other aspects of Microsoft security, and especially it is good for your IT admin team to take a look and to see an overview of what is happening. So we had a threat center before, we have a security center as well. So this thing is going to show you information about alerts, actions you need to perform. You're going to see the reports of what is actually happening within the system. It's going to show you some information about your classification of confidential documents. It's going to help you do some digging into the system and understand what is actually happening and what kind of data we have, and do we have any security issues and stuff like that. It's also going to provide you with a Microsoft Secure Score. This system is going to give you an overview of what has been configured within your system, and it's going to give you hints what you need to do. Say, if you haven't enabled Microsoft multi-factor authentication, it's going to give you a task for your admin to go in and do that. So it's like checking your system if it has been configured properly, and it's scoring you against Microsoft best practices, against other customers within the same industry or same geography. So you're you're kind of competing with everybody else to be better. So it's definitely recommended for your IT team to go inside and look, okay, how can we be better, and what do we need to configure to make this this tenant, this Microsoft 365 deployment more secure. For customers that are utilizing a lot of third-party applications or applications that are not within the scope of your Office 365, Microsoft provides you with additional layer of security called Microsoft Cloud App Security, where this thing acts like a broker that can monitor and route the traffic of your applications, and then making sure that everything, the data that flows from your users to the applications is secure, and that there are no potential threats available while your users are using the systems in some other cloud environment. So if you have a lot of usage of external third-party cloud apps, I would definitely recommend you to look into Microsoft Cloud App Security to understand, okay, what are the potential issues and how we can use Cloud App Security to protect our environment. In 2020, of course, work from home was one of the things we talked the most. And here are some of the things that you can definitely do to make work from home more efficient, more secure, and configured better. So we talked about many of these things, but you should definitely also look into training your users, monitoring the systems, just to make sure that everybody is empowered, but also secured when working from home and connecting to your production data. One tip that is good for your networking teams is that you should look into optimizing the traffic that goes to Office 365. So if you have a setup where your users are connecting to VPN to your company and then going to Office 365, you should look into how there are different options how you can channel that traffic directly to Microsoft 365 instead of going through the company and the company network, which might slow the traffic for your users. So in order to optimize the experience for end users, your networking team should, if you have the situation, should look into how they can allow users to connect directly to Microsoft 365. So we talked about Azure AD and we said, okay, Azure AD is the foundation of our security in Microsoft 365. But how can we make our tenant more secure in terms of content? What can we do to secure the content that we have within the system? And cloud is great here because you can, it's so easy for you to create some documentation, some documents, and easily share that with your external collaborators, your partners, people you're working on a project with. But you need to make sure that proper people are having access to these documents, and you need to make sure that IT has some sort of control to make sure that there are no potential leaks of very confidential data. So, as I said, when it comes to collaboration, we have different aspects. We have Microsoft Teams, we have SharePoint, we have OneDrive, we even have Exchange to some point. And we need to understand, okay, what is the situation when it comes to external sharing? To whom we are going to allow to external share? Are we going to allow anonymous links? Are we going to allow guests into our tenant? Are we going to allow collaboration for different companies to work with us? And who is going to approve that and on which level? So there are different components when it comes to collaboration. We can, of course, use the base component, and that is the Defender for Office 365, which kind of scans the documentation for potential viruses and threats. We already mentioned that when we talked a little bit about Exchange and emails. But we can control the security on SharePoint and OneDrive level, where we can define sharing policies and links policies and access requests. We can also do the same for Microsoft Teams, where we can control who are the people that can join teams and participate in the discussions within the teams. So, as I said, there are different levels of sharing for people from outside of your organization. You can allow sharing to happen on the Azure AD level, where you can empower your IT teams to pretty much invite guests into your directory, and then these guests can participate in selected Microsoft 365 groups or SharePoint or Teams collaboration environments. Or you can define that people from within teams, groups, and SharePoint can directly invite guests into their own environment. And as global administrator or security administrator, you have the options to define who can be invited at which level. So, for example, here on the external sharing slide, external sharing picture, you see that this is like the most permissive environment because everybody can share a file with almost everybody. So this is something that might be good for some organizations, but it's probably not the best practice for the majority of Microsoft 365 customers. So you need to plan about, you need to know about this, you need to understand what is happening, and you need to define the proper level of sharing that's good for your business. So as I said, there are many different places, and I put a link here so you can go into all these different centers where you can configure the sharing settings. You can do it on the Azure AD level, you can do it on SharePoint and OneDrive level, you can do it on Teams level, you can define all these various aspects of when something will be shared and with whom you can share it. One thing is, of course, there are other different options. One of the very dangerous options, I would say, if you don't know what you're doing, would be anonymous links. So your users can create an anonymous link, post it on the internet, and anonymous user can come in and see the document. This is very useful if you're running some sort of a public organization when you need to share your data, actually. So this is good and recommended. But in most scenarios, you would need to look into, do I set up an expiration requirement for each link? How do I control who can share that? And what kind of strategy I have to maybe remove those links when those documents are no longer required. So I would definitely look into this in your organization to find out, okay, is this something that we really need, and what can we do and improve to make this thing secure. Also, when you're inviting people from outside, you as an organization could define blocking mechanisms, and you can say, okay, only our external collaborators from fabricam.com can join our tenant and see the files. So, or you can have some sort of an internal IT approval of the domains, external companies that can see the file. So this can be useful. You can also limit the sharing only to specified groups within your organization. So maybe you have some sort of a power users group or managers or whatever, and these could be the people that can actually share the file outside of your organization. So thinking about guests is very important. So you need to make sure that you have controlled how guests are actually accessing the content from within your system. So you can either require multi-factor authentication for them. You can force them to sign terms of use or some sort of an NDA. You can force them to be only in the web, so they are not able to connect to your documents from Office clients, especially if these devices are unmanaged and you don't know what's actually happening. You can time out their connections. You can apply different sensitivity labels to the content that's being shared and stuff like that. So there are many different options. You really need to think about your business and see, why is it important that we share files, and what can we do to protect those files in the right way. One good thing to understand what kind of data you have in the system is to enforce sensitivity labels. So pretty much you're going to say to your content creators, okay, every document you create, we need to really understand, okay, what kind of content you have inside. So something can be very not important and non-business related, and it could not be something that's very business important, but some documents could be very confidential or internal and things like that. So you can combine this and say, if a document is internal, then it cannot be shared, or if a document is very confidential, it cannot be even shared within the company and things like that. So it's a very good practice. This can be further extended by Azure Identity Information Protection, you can encrypt your document, so even if somebody gets access to a particular document, she won't be able to read it because it's encrypted. It can only be encrypted if you have the proper privileges. So making sure everything is secure is very important for organizations that harbor very confidential and very important data. On top of sensitivity labels for documents, we can also do site classifications, and we can say, okay, this entire site holds some sort of very sensitive data, private information, so we really do not allow other people to connect and see that data. When it comes to Microsoft Teams and provisioning of Teams, and as we have seen in the beginning, a lot of organizations went in and they provisioned Microsoft Teams. But many of those organizations didn't have really time to plan it in advance. What you need to think about is, who are your team's administrators? Who are going to be the owners and members of these teams, and why? What are the policies? So you might have the Microsoft team where you don't allow everybody to post, only the owners. You could think about who can provision the teams and who can create new teams. Which teams clients are you going to use? How are you going to track the usage of the entire team infrastructure and stuff like that? So there's many things that you need to do to plan your deployment. If you didn't do that, you can look into your current state and think, okay, how can we make this thing better? What are the changes that we need to implement, and how we can control the growth in number of teams, and do we have people storing documents in the right places? So some sort of an information architecture could be good for you to plan and make your teams better. SharePoint security is also one of the things that you need to think about, and it kind of connects to Microsoft Teams, because with every Microsoft team there is a SharePoint site that hosts all your files and everything that's stored within it. Here you need to think about, how are you going to use SharePoint groups? When do you plan to use AD groups? Which groups are you actually going to use with which site? So Microsoft Team creates 3 default groups. So should you go and create more groups, or you should just focus on these 3 groups? So a little bit of planning and information architecture here is good. You also need to think about sharing settings as well, because when it comes to sharing settings, you can here also decide if SharePoint files should be shared within the organization, if SharePoint files should be shared anonymously to guest users and stuff like that. So you need to do a little bit of thinking. When it comes to security of data that's being stored within Microsoft 365 data centers, Microsoft is encrypting all your files. It's doing a lot to distribute the content, to separate the keys, and to stay compliant with various security requirements and industry standards. So the data is encrypted with IS-256 encryption, and the keys and blobs of data are separated in different disks, and then disks on top of that are also BitLocker encrypted. So Microsoft is doing everything possible to prevent any kind of leakage of your data from their data centers. We also said in the beginning that there are a lot of email protection practices when it comes to malware and viruses and things like that. So, but there are also some additional protections where you can look into conditional access as well for some scenarios. You can see if you should disable email forwarding to external users, if you should disable anonymous calendar sharing if you don't need it, and things like that. So there's some things that you can verify within Exchange Online to validate that your environment is secure and that you are have configured it in a proper way. Here in Syskit, we also developed some of the best practices to make sure that you are keeping your collaboration side of the environment to the industry standards. Don't have any potential problems. So here is the list of all the best practices that we are currently working on with our customers to ensure that their environments are configured properly. We are also building on top of what I already said, what are the common Microsoft 365 best practices, but we are also adding some additional layer where we want to understand, okay, what kind of content you have, and is this the proper way to set things up? So, for example, we are trying to help you determine if you have orphaned users within the tenant. Do you have, say, teams that have just one owner, and this becomes a problem when this owner is not available? So we are alerting you to tell you, okay, maybe you should definitely have 2 owners for each team. We can go into different sites and groups and teams and tell you if there are external users, and prompt you to review all these sites and teams to understand what is actually the problem. So here on the slide, you have a link for a more detailed document. So if you just go there and fill the form, we are going to send you the document that contains all these best practices, so you can make sure that your tenant is actually configured in a proper way to be more secure and to understand, okay, what is actually happening. Let's talk a little bit about licensing, because I mentioned a lot of features that are available within Microsoft 365, but you need to understand, okay, which package you need to have some of these features. So the majority of features that we mentioned, like conditional access or some additional threat protections and stuff like that, are available within E5 packages. They are available as Office 365 E5 or Microsoft 365 E5, and you can also license some of the stuff with Azure AD Premium license or Azure AD Premium 2 license. So I would recommend you to understand which features you would be interested in, and then talk to your licensing specialist to see which of these packages are actually ideal for your organization to be more secure and to manage your tenant in a better way. Okay, so this brings us to end of this very short and very fast overview. We are going to do a demo of Syskit Point right now, so you can see how we can help you to be better in managing and securing your environment. So we will be switching to Eva now. Eva?
Thank you, Tony, and hello, everyone. Let me just share my screen. Okay, I hope that you guys can now see my screen with Syskit Point. Welcome. Damir, can you confirm it? No? Okay. Tony, can you confirm that you can now see my point? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I would like to introduce you to our tool, Syskit Point. As Tony said, it's the comprehensive governance solution that empowers both IT teams, but also the power users, meaning the team owners, site owners, to help your organization increase your governance level. What it actually provides, it's the complete inventory in a centralized interface. It provides detailed but simple access reporting and management directly from Syskit Point. It gives you a great detailed user and admin activity auditing. And in the end, it gives you the governance automation that's needed to help you keep your environment secure. So let's take a look at it and what can it actually do. So I will start with the dashboard. If I open it, Syskit Point will give you a great overview of what's going on in your environment. So it's quite easy for you to keep your environment growth, meaning you can see how many Microsoft teams you have, how many groups, how many sites, as well as for the users. And what's great, you can actually see the trend of how many new teams you have created in your last 30 days. Of course, that's not all. You can easily drill down to all these new teams and then see which teams are those, when were they created, and what are their sharing settings, which are really important, like Tony mentioned. If I go back to my dashboard, there is additional part. It's not only the growth trends. You can also spot some major security concerns like orphan resources. So if I click here, I immediately get the list of all the teams, sites, and groups that don't have any active owner. So if I click on any of it, Syskit Point will immediately give you the action, so you can easily change the owner and make it again reliable. I will go back just to show you that there are a couple of other parts here. So for example, we all know that anonymous links are a big threat. Of course, not of all of them, but if you want to explore them with this dashboard, you can actually easily see all the anonymous links in your environment. You can see that you can see it on the folder level, on a file level. It gives you more details on when was that actually created. And if I click on any of it, I can immediately remove that anonymous link directly from here. I can do it for one or in bulk. So that's the dashboard, and we can call it a starting point. But if you want to see more details, we provide additional areas, of course. So I will start with the users inventory, where you can actually see the exact number of your users, how many of them are licensed, how many of them are not active. And if you can see the different colors, it means that each of the color represents a different type of user. So The teal ones or the green ones are actually external users. The orange ones are your active licensed users. And if you see a gray one, it means that they are disabled in your Active Directory. With the predefined views here, you can actually see immediately who are your admins in your environment. So if I click on the administrators, Syskit Point will give me the list of privileged users in your environment that are defined in Office 365. Of course, I can do the list of all users who are disabled in AD, who cannot sign in your environment, but you can then easily see if any of them has any license. So for my environment, that's perfectly clean, so I don't have any licenses going to waste. Let me just go back to the user and show you that that's not all. So this is not just the overview. If you want to see more details about specific user, for me, I will choose myself. So this is my external user on this environment. If I click on the user, Syskit Point gives me a nice dashboard specifically telling me what's this user doing in my environment. So again, this is now external user, but you can do, of course, for any internal user as well. So I can see how active this user is, but most importantly, I can see the list of all the places in my environment that this external user has access to. So on the left hand side is actually the list of their memberships. And on the right-hand side is the list of all the places. So if I click on the Explore, this will give me just the list of the sites where I can find the teams and groups. But if I click on the Explore and expand everything, Syskit Point gives me a detailed user access report stating every file, folder on any type of site, including Microsoft Teams, Office 365 groups, even OneDrives if you want to do that. And I can easily see, so the black ones are my files. I can easily see which type of access does he have, how did he gain it, and if, of course, if I'm not happy with it, if I click on any of the options, for example, I'm not happy that anyone can access this file. On the right-hand side, Syskit Point immediately suggests the appropriate action for that sharing link, and you can do it right from here. Once you click on it, Syskit Point will do it real time, and you'll get the latest info in this report right away. A similar inventory view can be done for Microsoft Teams and groups. So in one single pane of glass, you can actually see, okay, how many public or private teams do I have? How many of them are externally shared? How many of them actually have guests? And if you see this last column activity, you can see which one of them are active. So the green one will mean that they're actively used, and that there is no need for dedicated action. Again, using the predefined views, you can, for example, immediately detect all teams that have private channels, which we all know that are quite tricky to handle and detect. So using this view, I can immediately find all of them. Again, if I want to see more details about each specific team, I would simply click on it. But I won't do that for now. I want to show you the sites inventory. So if I go to the sites, again, you see the similar principle on the header. You can filter by a site type that's supported, and you can see all the properties that are important for that site. So for example, you can see if I filter by my teams, I can see immediately their sharing settings. And if I'm not happy with some of them, so for example, I can see that QA team has anyone, which is not good. If I click on a QA team, I can immediately share all those settings to the ones that I desire. Syskit Point will, of course, respect your global settings. So if anyone or guest user is not allowed, you won't be able to allow it here as well. Okay, what's important here that these columns can be changed. For me, I thought that in sharing settings are quite important. I can immediately see the storage, but if you want to add something else, you can simply use the column chooser and you will get all the information in one report, including if something is connected to a hub site. This is now where the things get really interesting. So if I click on a specific site connected to a team that I'm interested in, again, I get a really detailed dashboard telling me, okay, how many users can actually access this team? It's not only members. So Syskit Point detects every kind of sharing and collaboration in your team, including anonymous links and external users. This is also quite contextual. So as I mentioned in the beginning, the tool can be used by the owners as well. So if you decide to allow your owners, they can see this dashboard for themselves for their own resources. They won't be able to see everything, just the teams that they own or sites that they own. If you don't want to explore content by content, so you have the entire content hierarchy here, you also have the analytics, but you actually want to see, okay, just tell me who has access to what. If I click on the permission metrics report, this is the king of Syskit Point reports, we will give you the entire hierarchy of your content. So every file, folder, subsite, whatever you created, whatever you collaborated on this team, and we will tell you who has access to it. It will start with the privileged accounts, so the admins, the owners, but then when you see these orange folders or black files, icons, you can see who has access to this. So for this file, for this analysis, I can immediately see, depending on the color of the icons. So for example, I can see the SharePoint groups and I can see their members directly from here. For the blue ones, I can see Office 365 groups and who is a member of those. And of course, I can also see, let me just find it in the end. I can see the members of my Active Directory group. So these are the green ones here. I don't have to go anywhere else. I see all those memberships right here. Also, again, you can change those settings and permissions directly from here. So if I'm not happy that my intercompany sales group has read permissions, I can simply click on edit. I can change it to contribute, save it, let Syskit Point do its magic. And after you see the notification, it means that permissions have been changed. I can refresh it, and you can see that Point changed those permissions to contribute. So it's really, really interactive. We try to make it understandable and simple so that everyone, both IT admins and owners, can use it. So this report is not everything that we offer. On the right-hand side, you can see additional suggestions. There are also more reports here, but I want to mention the reports section. So in this part, what's really interesting is that you can also see the list of users with privilege access. So if you want to review, okay, who has the highest privilege in my environment, you can select if you want to include admin roles, owners, or even full control people. You run the report, and in just a couple of seconds, you get a nice report stating, okay, who are my global admins, who are my SharePoint admins, but also you see all the owners and maybe disabled owners of your groups, teams, and other types of sites. Again, clicking on a specific owner, you can easily change them, and the Syskit Point will do that real time. Another report that I wanted to mention really shortly is site permission changes. So again, this report is available for both admins and also the resource owners if you want to do so. So for example, if I select all of my teams, so now I filter by Microsoft Teams, I get the option to choose for how long I wish to review the audit logs for. So if I select last 30 days, Syskit Point will tell me what's been going on for the last 30 days. But I can also filter by this specific activity type. And most importantly, I can filter by type of the user. So for me, for this part, I would like to see, okay, what are my external users doing here? If I run the report, Syskit Point again gives me in one nice clean interface all the details of what my external user has been doing across all of these teams that I selected. If you want to see more details, you can filter by specific type of activity and you can check what's going on. If that's not enough, you can expand each one of those, and Syskit Point will give you all the details that you can find in the audit logs, including, for example, the client IP. What's important to notice here for the audit logs in Syskit Point, you can save them more than 90 days. That's default in E3 license. And of course, you have the possibility to delegate those reports to your owners as well, so they can easily troubleshoot or find something that they need in their own audit logs for their own resources. There are multiple reports here. I won't go through each one of them, so it's quite detailed. but I just want to use this couple of last minutes to show actually the really interesting thing, and that's the governance automation. So if I go to my governance part of the tool, I get a really nice dashboard stating, okay, how much of my environment is actually secured, how many owners and site admins have reviewed their sites and confirmed that access is still valid. So if I want to see details, I click on it and I get a list of all the people who actually confirmed. I have the written accountability of each of the owner that they review their sites. So how does this feature works? So admins configure the frequency. So I can say, okay, every 3 months, all owners and admins need to review their sites and they need to confirm or remove some access that is still not valid. And what happens when they do that? In the desired period, your owners will get the task. So for that part, I'm just going to shortly switch to my owner. So you can see that now I'm Cork. The interface is quite similar. The only thing is that I don't have the governance style here. I have my tasks. So when I log as in the owner, I get the task, okay, you need to do the permission reviews. I click on the review and I will do the review for my QA team site. The tool will lead me to a really streamlined wizard telling me what to review and what to actually see as important part of those access reviews. So the first screen is actually just an introduction to see what's this team about. If I'm not sure if that's some old team, I can also see the last reviews, who did it, what did they say, and I can see the sharing policies and privacy. When I start the review, the first step is actually to review the members. Again, the header tiles give me the ability to actually easily find the most important parts. So I want to see the owners, members, or the guests. If I click on any of the user, again, this right-hand side gives me more information. So I have the actions. I can create the user activity report. So for example, I can easily see what this specific user has been doing on this specific site. But what's also important, I have this additional information here, which tells me who added this user, when, and what was the last activity of this external user. So if they're inactive, I can actually quite easily remove them. I won't be doing this. I will go to the sharing part because I'm happy with my members here. Sharing part is the one that will take most of your time. So this is the area where you can actually see all shared content. So all the content that has been collaborated on, you can easily review by the content, so meaning by a file or folder, or you can review it by the user. Currently, my default view is all the files that are shared outside of group. This will show me all the users who are not members of my team, but have any kind of access to this files and folders. So if I skip to the users view, I can easily see who are those users. And again, simply expanding by their name, I can see which places exactly those external users have access to. Again, clicking any of these objects, regardless if it's file or a folder, I can easily edit those permissions or even remove them. When I'm happy how this looks like, I can switch to another part. So for example, I want to review only external users and I want to see which places they have access to. So this is really, really easily reviewed and explored. If I click next, I'll get the list of all the actions that I did during this review. So I can once again review if I'm happy with it. Once the owner is done with it, I will again go back to the global admin view or the admin view. And if I just want to see, okay, these ones that are completed, show me what they're actually been doing. So maybe somebody just said that they confirmed it, it's done. But for the audit purpose, for the compliance purpose, we also enable the admins to have complete control of it. So if I select all the completed tasks here and click on the view details, I get the complete list of all the actions performed. So I can see where, who, and what did during these permission reviews. So we can say that this governance automation really can help you ensure that compliance and audit process goes really fast and really easy for all your members and your organization. So this was just a short overview of what Point has to offer. We are already working on some new things. So we are working on alerts, including the sensitivity labels. We will provide detailed analytics and adoption metrics so you can keep track of what's actually used, what's not, which users are active, which are not. We will also be adding license report. So if you find anything interesting here, please do contact us. We are really customer centric and we want to hear your feedback and your suggestions on how to make Microsoft 365 community life easier so they can ensure the high level of security with as much as effort possible. One additional note before I go back to Toni, if you're also interested in documenting your configuration, so all the settings in your admin centers, make sure to check our Syskit Trace tool because it will make your life easier. So there is a free trial available. Don't hesitate to try it. And now I will go back to Toni. Thank you for your patience with me and for Syskit.